All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. If anyone doesn't know, my name is Ivan. I'm the director of Santa Cruz Beach Volleyball Club. I'm also the assistant coach for the women's beach volleyball team at San Jose State. And for the last 9 months or so, I've been easing into it. So maybe 6 months, I've been the director of recruiting. Um, I am going to give a little talk, essentially, and at the end, I'll put some resources in the chat um, that have helped me. Some of the stuff I've learned is, or yeah, learned is from essentially recruiting experts, especially from the like player side, player slash parent side perspective. And then after I talk a little bit about that kind of stuff, I'll give some what I think are tips as a coach and recruiting director that of things that are helpful that I like seeing that I like when I see an email from player or when I am finding players on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, they pop up in my feed or whatever it is, and then I do a little research, and there's things that make it easier and things that make it harder. And then towards the end, I'll open it up for some questions if there are any. And yeah, we'll get it going. Um, I think the first thing to say, and I know most of the people that signed up for interest, and I think most of the parents here are have younger players, 2027s, 2028s, maybe even some 2029s. And that's important in the first place, knowing your player's graduation year. Now that that's how most of the youth tournaments divide things. That's how I can't speak for all, but I would assume most of the college coaches, everyone's split up into grad years. That's how we think about it in a pretty generalized sense of the word. So, and the important thing to know for that is there's one major date, June 15th, that you might want to write down or whatever it is. And that's when college coaches can begin communicating with players. And that's June 15th after the sophomore year of high school. So the June 15th that's coming up in, what is it, 2 weeks or so, 3 weeks, uh, that is for 2026s. I have a big long list of 2026s, separated into categories of most interested to, somewhat interested. And uh any 2026s, 2027s, 2028s, or any graduation year with a bigger number than 2026 and even 26 now, um, all Division One and Division Two, as far as I know, college coaches are not allowed to have any contact with any of those athletes in any way, shape, or form. That doesn't mean, sorry, communication. That doesn't mean that players can't start sending emails to schools that they're interested in. It just means that uh, you're guaranteed to get zero response if you're 2026, 2027, 2028. So, a big part of the recruiting process for Division One, Division Two schools is being patient, sending emails into what feels like a void, not getting discouraged, and just sort of, you know, trying your best and being in communication. It is possible, I would say, to over communicate, but I'll get into that in my do's and don'ts or whatever you want to call it. Um, but yeah, plenty of communication is fine. Just don't get discouraged if you're not hearing back because college coaches literally can't. Um, I don't think there's any 2024s or fives parents in here, but just for anyone, I am recording this, so anyone watching this that is from those graduation years, um, even if there's not a lot of contact, not a lot of responses, also don't get discouraged, because um, coaches are busy. Coaches are busy. Beach volleyball coaches are seriously underfunded. They're doing admin, they're doing this, they're doing that, they're doing everything in between. Right now we're in transfer portal time, so coaches are losing players, evaluating their situation. Maybe they need a player, maybe they're trying to get a player out of the portal and that doesn't pan out. And then all of a sudden they're going to start looking at 2024s and 2025s again and reevaluating their lists. So even if that June 15th date passes and you're not getting contacts, I wouldn't get super discouraged. Um, I understand that that can be disappointing, um, but persistence pays off. Um, and I guess the other thing, very quickly on that is, you know, there are some D3 schools I probably should know. There's NAIA, there's community college. There are other routes if you're super interested in continuing to play beach volleyball. And most schools, maybe not the top 10 schools, but most schools particularly look at those, levels, particularly D2 NAIA schools and community colleges. We have a transfer this year from a community college. We have a transfer coming in 2024 from community college. So it is a viable route, if you're really want to try to get up to a D1 program. And the other thing I wanted to say about dates is, so there's that June 15th date, and then there's an August 1st date. Once June 15th comes around, for 2026's, it's open communication. There are some dates on dead periods. You can look those up. Maybe I'll share that after. There's particularly around the national championship, and I think sometime in December there's a no contact period, and then there's some evaluation periods, etc. Um, that said, uh, for 2026's, 2027's, right? The later graduation years, the younger players. Um, we receive emails, depending on the school or, different things. We look at them, we put our lists together, and we can do some contacting of your club, club coaches and club directors. So, even if you're not getting responses, which you won't be getting responses, there might be coaches doing some background work. And every once in a while you might notice a coach coming around your court, and that probably means they're interested. That said, I mean, it's pretty important to be at the July tournaments down in Southern California. Um, that's where almost all the coaches go. Sorry, the other date I wanted to mention is August 1st. So August 1st before junior year. So essentially after your sophomore year of high school. That's when unofficial and official visits are allowed for D1 schools. So unofficial means that the school is not paying for any of your visit. Official means the school is paying for some or all of your visit. Um, okay. Now I want to get into sort of the meat and potatoes. Um, what I suggest, what I know is, um, most kids should be, especially the younger players, should be putting lists together essentially. Um, Playing D1 beach volleyball or D1 any sport is a lot. So there probably is a little bit of soul searching involved in whether you want to be under that pressure, be under that the amount of time. Um, I do talk to a lot of athletes about what they want out of their college experience. If it's not, grinding all the time, maybe you don't really want to be a D1 athlete. Because you're grinding for your sport, you're grinding for schoolwork and grades and all that. And, you know, there's still some social stuff that happens. I know our players are being social. So, but that's a lot. It takes a certain person and personality. As far as lists go, what I saw and I liked recommended was 10 plus schools in sort of a medium range of like, I think I could probably get into this school academically. I like, the location enough. I think it'd be a pretty good fit for me. Look at majors, those kinds of things players are interested in for s- um to study. That's the word I'm looking for. Sorry. Maybe about 3 to 5 to 7 dream schools. Those schools might be a little bit, you know, there could be a lot of players that have UCLA and USC as their dream school. There's not many players that are going to go to those schools. So, um, again, playing the tournaments down south can give you a little bit of a realistic assessment of where you're at in the pecking order, where you need to be, where you need to go to, um, you know, get to that top level. There's a lot of kids that are going to be going to those schools that are going to be at those tournaments. And then about 5 safety schools. Maybe it's, something else that is important, it seems, for California kids. I know for Santa Cruz area kids, a lot of them want to go a little further away. Maybe LA is far enough away, but like, San Jose, for example, or even Santa Clara is a little bit close to home. Some players like that, some don't. I would say more don't. Um, but maybe one of those schools ends up sort of as a safety school on your list. And yeah, you can update those lists as you go. Again, location is a big one a lot of times. Academic, size of school. Do you want to go to a big football school? Do you want to go to, a smaller school where the classes are smaller? Santa Clara, LMU, Pepperdine, those are all Christian or Catholic schools or whatever. Is your faith important to you? St. Mary's, those kinds of things. Um, and research those coaches, right? And you can pay attention also. The portal, I would say, is a acid test of um program cultures, right? If there's a lot of turnover every year at a school, that tends to indicate that, there's some issues with the culture. I don't know. A lot of things go into transferring. It's not just the coaches, it's not just the culture. It might be also the school. Sometimes it's financials, all kinds of different things. Um, I think that's it I have for lists. That's what I have in my notes. And then I think essentially the other big one is your online presence and profile. Um, that's sort of your online resume is a term I heard that I liked. Um, and Instagram, Volleyball Life, NCSA, it seems to be a good research or resource. Field level, YouTube, right? Your graduation year on your YouTube handle, is going to be important. Try to make it easy for coaches to find your graduation year, find your, I mean, I really like when I can find someone's height easily. Um, it's unfortunate for the shorter players, I would say, that we, we're in a sport where height is a pretty big judgment. But if I'm not finding the height on a profile um, or Instagram or email or whatever it is, I'm looking for it, and then as soon as I'm looking for it, I'm assuming that you're on the shorter, smaller side. And to me, the height doesn't matter quite as much. It's more the video. So, um, if I'm looking for it and feel like you're hiding it, then it becomes a little more of an issue. If it's just sort of out there, personal, this is a personal preference. Maybe I should have saved it a little more for the end. It's always nice if an athlete has committed somewhere to update Instagram and their different profiles with that. That's definitely helpful for coaches. Um, and is there anything else I needed to say? Academics, um, you know, who was I was talking to someone recently, a parent recently, who, understandably very proud of their um player, of their athlete, good grades, great grades. Um, we we're in a sport where most of the kids have very good grades. So it doesn't stand out quite as much as some of the other sports. But it can be useful, it can be helpful. There are some schools, Stanford is the big example, where you have to have really, you have to be able to get into Stanford academically. They don't make any athletic. They're not lenient with their athletics at all. So it can be important. Um, Obviously at SC Beach, we completely emphasize academics in a certain sense over athletics, because that's the number one priority for kids. Um, what else do I have? So, the next thing I was going to talk about is athletics. And that's essentially your videos, your highlight clips, things like that. Um, I personally really like, I guess I am mixing in the personal, but anyway, I really like YouTube, having a YouTube profile. The easiest thing seems like maybe it will be taken every once in a while is, first name, last name, graduation year. And then within that profile, it's real nice to have, height, maybe even club you play for, a few of those things, so that if a coach wants to find out more, especially the easier you can make it for a coach to find out more, the easier it is for a coach to look into you, get to know, coaches really want to get to know someone as much as they can. Obviously, it's difficult via video and online profiles and things like that. Um, but coaches are recruiting not just an athlete. They're recruiting a person, a player, um, you know, they're recruiting someone into their culture, into their, yeah, into a major part of their life, right? And in a weird sense, for coaches, D1 coaches, it's into their livelihood as well. So they really do want to make sure that someone is a good fit. Um, I won't say like the right fit, because, or like the perfect fit, because that's a little bit difficult to judge, but yeah, someone that really, so, those are little ways that you can stand out. As far as video itself goes, edited video slash highlights is definitely important. Um, it's just one of those things where, as I said, coaches don't have enough time in the day, uh, at all, period. So a 2 to 5 minute highlight video, I would say even maybe 2 to 4 minute highlight video, is super, super important. Um, that gets the attention, ideally, hopefully, you're getting attention with that, with your highlight video. And then having on your YouTube page some full sets, games, matches, whatever you want to call them, ideally where you get served, right? Your highlights, Particularly, coaches are going to be looking for your arm swing. They're going to be looking for you getting served and hitting the crap out of a ball. Um, and then coaches are like, oh, whoa, that person can hit the crap out of the ball. And it doesn't really matter, what your height you are, whatever. They're looking, can you jump up, hit the crap out of the ball? Um, because we need to force teams to not play a two-back defense and not be pulling all the time. We need to force a blocker to respect us. That's what Division One needs. And you go down the list a little bit. Movement in the sand is important. These days, everyone handsets. So if your athlete is not handsetting yet, um, have them talk to me as an SC Beach coach, and we will run some handsetting clinics, and we'll just talk about handsetting for a long time. Because if you're not handsetting at this point, you're in a little bit of trouble. Um, Yeah, and then like I said, the easier you can make it for a coach to find more about you, the better. So that's why I recommend having some full games and sets where you get served. It doesn't have to be a win. You don't have to be crushing your opposition. Most coaches will like it if you're maybe even struggling a little bit because the opposition is evenly matched, a little better, very good. Um, if you have a match that's close against someone committed to a big school or even another school, that's going to earn a lot of respect. And obviously, as I said, we're looking for someone that's hitting the ball. And in your match, we want to see people getting served and how they attack, how they play offense. Are they hitting the ball consistently, or was the highlight video their three highlights from, you know, the last 4 years of their beach volleyball career? Um, yeah, I mean, that's sort of the honest truth of it. Um, Trying to think if there's anything else. Um, oh, try to make it easy for coaches to know who you are, or who the athlete they're looking for is. Um, some of the things I've seen is they edit in like an arrow or a circle over right before each play, right? Volleyball's nice because it stops and starts, so it's pretty easy. Maybe even there's a little screen description, name again, height, graduation year, and then in that particular video, what color top and bottom you're wearing or something like that. Definitely each play having some sort of circle or arrow pointing at you, at the athlete, is going to be super helpful. If it's a full match, I wouldn't say, or full set, you don't necessarily need to do that. Um, just something, maybe the first few points, and then coach will recognize by the first few points. Um, Again, I like YouTube the best. There are some other places where you can put videos. I think Field Level, and I am not remembering the other one off the top of my head. And you want to have those links in the emails that you send, which I'll get to. Um, please try not to have a video that a coach has to download. Um, I personally have downloaded the ones that I've been sent because I'm a completionist. I like to be thorough. I bet there's a bunch of coaches that give up, especially the ones that are getting, so many emails they can't even handle it. As soon as there's a video I have to download, I mean, I even think about it. I'm like, maybe not. So yeah, a link to a YouTube, a link to a website. Well, not just any website, I guess. If it looks sketchy, they might not click on it as well. But we can move on. Last thing I'll say is about your online presence is you are in also kind of building a brand, right? We are in this new age of NIL, and there is some potential to make some money in college as an NIL ambassador. Um, that'll mostly be, big schools will have some sort of program. Even we technically have a program. I don't know how much impact it has for the athletes. Unfortunately, on our beach volleyball team. So most schools will have something. But if you have something already, it can be a little easier to, reach out to local businesses and make some NIL money. I don't have much on that because it's such a new space. If there is anyone interested, one of my good friends is actually an NIL expert. So reach out to me, contact at scbeachvolleyball.com, and I'll put you in contact with a good friend. She's really great in the NIL space. I just don't have time to too much. Okay. Big thing, coach outreach, right? Emails to coaches. Like I said, send them. Don't get discouraged. Keep sending them. I would say once every 2 to 3 months, maybe once a month at most. More than that might be a little much. Um, in the subject, full name, right? First and last name, graduation year. I advise height, even if you're on the smaller side. Might as well just get it out there. They're gonna find it out at some point anyway. GPA maybe, club, maybe what state you live in. That's can be important for some schools, right? Some schools are recruiting a little more heavily in-state kids. That's more for walk-ons and things like that, just because in-state tuition is cheaper. But again, you're trying to give them a lot of or as much information, right? You don't want to overload it, but a lot of information so that they don't have to go look it up. So it's easy to search. If they want to, they're scrambling for a 2024 or 2025, they can just type 2024 into their search bar and all the 2024 kids show up that have emailed them, those kinds of things. Um, in the body of the email, who, what, where, when, why, right? Particularly why you're excited about the program. This is where those lists come in, that research, doing your homework on the school, on the coaches. Maybe you've went and saw the team play, something, some little detail, some reason why you are excited. Um, that resonates. That'll, take a little box of, oh, this kid is genuinely interested, as opposed to like, oh, this kid is sending emails to 50, 60 schools and we're just another one that gets an email. Obviously that takes a little more work, but being a D1 athlete is a lot of work. Getting recruited is a lot of work. It's so showing that extra work, is part of it. It's pretty important. Um, Link to your video. I know I already discussed this a little more. Um, Highlights, full match, whatever, link to your I personally tend to click on a highlight and then I, pretty quickly go to the actual page that they have set up and then I sort of navigate around myself. I definitely look for, full games, full sets, those kinds of things. Um, So yeah, links to your YouTube, links to your, if you have field level, now there's the volleyball life accounts, right? And ratings and stuff like that. Right, that's at the end, right? That's after you say thank you for your consideration or best regards or whatever. Really excited to join your program, you know, Ivan Blumberg, and then all my links are down at the bottom. Um, excuse me. And the other point there is right, making it easy for a coach to find more information. You want to make this as easy as possible, because coaches are so busy. Um, they might really, really like an athlete and still be too busy to figure it out. Um, it's a bummer because in a certain sense, everybody wants to feel super wanted. Um, but it's just the reality of the job. There's too many things. Again, beach volleyball teams are underfunded compared to all the other, not all the other sports, but compared to a lot of sports. I have a note down, no downloads as possible. I can't emphasize that enough. Um, don't make a coach download things. They're most likely not going to do it. Um, Continue contact. That's sort of my next bullet point or next major point. You can keep reaching out until you get a for sure no. At San Jose, we have a um, sort of a stock email that's a no that says, "Hey, our 2024 um, incoming is full," or something like that, or our 2025 is full. Um, we really appreciate you, reaching out and being in this process. And that's a bummer if you receive one of those. But the reality is that uh, it's it's important for coaches not to over, the coach in me believes in everyone. So in a certain sense, I want to take everyone and give them a chance, blah, 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 blah. But we only have four courts. We only have a certain amount of court space. We only have a certain amount of coaches. You probably don't even want to go to a program that's like, oh, we have 20, but maybe we'll take 21, or oh, we have 22 and maybe we'll take 23 or 24, and a couple kids can redshirt. Yeah, it's probably better to be in a program that's, between 16 and 20. 20, I would say, is really, really big, because that's only 10 play. That said, USC, UCLA, I think they're up above 20, but they're pretty unique. We don't want to measure many people on USC and UCLA. As I said, following up every 2 to 3 months is my advice. You could even go 3 to 6 months, depending. Um, Particularly, it's nice to follow up with new information. If you're just sending the same thing over and over again, just because you're not getting a response. Again, there's a lot of kids that you can't even respond to, and then people are too busy, and there's too many things going on. So if you have new video, new highlights, um, if you're going to a tournament and you think there's a realistic chance that the coach is going to be there. I've had some emails where it's a player in Florida, so it makes sense they're playing a tournament in Florida or Louisiana or something like that. But I'm the coach of San Jose State. Like, the likelihood that I'm at a Louisiana or Florida tournament is, it's just it's I don't know. It feels a little weird. It's like, okay, great. You're gonna be at that tournament. You can send highlights from that tournament, absolutely. The Southern California tournaments for me are more realistic. Um, we as a school we were in Louisiana, so if for some reason you're like, oh look, they're gonna be in Louisiana playing, absolutely. And even, if you took the time to look up the schedule and figure out your schedule compared to their schedule, like, that probably is really nice to see in here. Um, but if you're just like, it's the off season for a program and you're playing a tournament in Texas or whatever, I would keep that to to yourself. Um, and more say, oh, here's new highlights from that tournament. I have it again, so I'll say it. Don't get discouraged. That's always going to be a theme in this recruiting process. You never know when it's going to happen. It might not. That's just the reality. There's only so many spots. It's a very, very small percentage that go from playing, it's a fairly small percentage that play in high school, even though that's pretty inclusive. It's a much, much smaller percentage that play, um, particularly Division 1 sports. Um, Remember the June 15th deadline. That's, again, off the don't get discouraged. Uh, there is no contact allowed. I guess technically there is contact in the sense that a 2026 could send me an email, and I could send an email back saying, I am sorry, I cannot have any communication with you until June 15th, after your sophomore year. But coaches are too busy to send that email. I don't think there's any coaches that are sending that email. Um, you can always ask for feedback. Like I said, if you have a new highlight, if you have something interesting. If you think that they're gonna be, at that tournament and evaluate you, definitely ask for feedback. Again, if you're one of the younger players, if it's not after your June 15th deadline, they're not gonna say anything. They can't. Um, you can go to camps. You can always go to camps. I definitely encourage kids to go to camps that, particularly schools that they're interested in, very interested in. Um, that is particularly for the younger players, that's the opportunity for them to interact with coaches, for coaches to get a sense and understanding of who you are as a person, who they would be recruiting. Um, and in those camps, please be a good teammate. Um, if you lose every game and are a great teammate and positive and helping each other, helping the teammates and, because sometimes it's mixed ages and mixed levels and things like that, that stands out so much more than, I mean, obviously, if you're really, really good, it's going to stand out, but coaches are recruiting good people. It's pretty rare these days that, um, if you're super talented but really not nice, um, yeah, it's tough. It's not just pure talent. So be nice, be good to your teammates, be a good teammate, be a good teammate at tournaments for that matter. If there's coaches walking around and they see someone not, being a jerk. I saw a video, Todd Rogers, Cal Poly head coach, one of the most famous, beach volleyball players of all time, very incredibly famous coach. Um, from what I remember of the video, it was like an Instagram, real thing. He said that's one of the number one things he looks for, how you interact with your teammates, how you interact with your parents, how you interact with your opponents. Um, and he takes people off of his list. He's fortunate enough to be at Cal Poly that he can probably recruit most of, one of I think they ended fourth in the nation, so he can recruit a lot of kids. But most schools, have some amount of that. So be good. Be good people. That's first. First and foremost, always. Um, Highlight video, I went into most of this. I will say, just kind of emphasize best plays first. Ideally, that's of you getting served or getting a dig and then hitting, and getting a kill or, hitting impressively. It doesn't have to be a kill. If you hit the ball well, and it's real nice. Um, yeah, serve receive, hitting, maybe a few defensive plays, show that hustle off, right? Show that you are determined to not let that volleyball touch the ground. Um, Try to have your angle, your camera be behind the service line. That's the easiest place to see. That's the easiest way to see volleyball from a coach's perspective. Um, yeah, that's what I recommend. Maybe you could do from sort of the corner, but ideally it's directly behind. Um, I have some stuff about spring checklists. I guess I can go through this real quick. Freshmen and younger, start working on those college lists, as I said. Um, work hard on your academics so you can potentially get an academic scholarship, merit scholarships. You might want to start being aware of what FAFSA means. That's federal student aid. That can be helpful for schools. You can do some research into upcoming camps and recruiting events. You can fill out questionnaires. A lot of schools have questionnaires. And just, it sort of gives an indication that you're interested. Um, I have always have to be a good team out and have a good attitude and be a good teammate. So obviously that's super important. Again, you can start sending emails. I don't know how useful that is. It's just sort of, um, maybe you will go on a list, but the youngest kids on my list are 2028s and they're, I don't really have profiles associated with them, or even if I've seen highlights, I don't really have them. I just have maybe a little note or a name. Kids have so much time to develop between, um, for 2028s, there's two more years of development ahead. Sophomore, start to get serious about making sure that online resume and profile is fully up to date, is easy to find, is easy to read, is easy to find more information. As I said, clean up your social media if you need to. Um, go to college camps and campuses where you're really genuinely interested, right? Something also that's important is to go to that campus to see if you like the campus, right? Like the school, like the academics. You're preparing in that sophomore year, it's that then you're preparing for that June 15th deadline. Um, my note is again sort of a theme. Don't be discouraged if June 15th comes up and you don't get any emails or many emails or any calls. Um, that doesn't mean coaches aren't interested. It just might mean that they have, in their list, they have players they're more interested in. Um, yeah, that's just the reality of life is that everyone's going to go for their number one choice first. And if they can't get that, then they start working their way down the list. So, players. We're still at San Jose recruiting 1 to 2 players for 2025. So it's not like, and maybe even 2024, um, it's not worth it's not worth quitting or getting discouraged if you don't get calls and emails that first day. And if you do, congratulations. That's awesome. Um, uh, yeah, that's great. It means you worked hard. Again, sophomore year, update your highlight videos. What I'm seeing some of it's changing now that beach volleyball is much more of a year-round sport is some kids only have highlights from the previous summer, maybe because they haven't played much beach volleyball. And so maybe some players are, maybe I play beach, maybe I play indoor. I would recommend getting out and playing a beach tournament or two and getting some highlights that are a little more recent than, if I'm watching video from a 2026 and all their video is from 2023, I'd like to see something from 2024 or at least late 2023 if it's all from summer. Again, it depends a little bit on the opposition. If they're playing, AVP Nationals or one of those big tournaments down south against high level opposition and look good, then it's fine. But yeah, updating those as much as you can. Just a quick note, I mentioned it already, but after that sophomore year, after that June 15th date, August 1st is when visits can start. Um, that's for again D1 and D2. D3, and NAIA, uh, D2, sorry, D3 and NAIA for sure. Don't really have any restrictions on communication. Um, I would say that it's still unlikely that much communication will happen super early with those schools. Again, too busy to really, I don't think D3 and NAIA schools have enough time to start recruiting 2028s, even though they can, just as an example, 2028s, even though they can technically communicate with them and recruit them. And the other big thing is a lot of those kids are going to want to keep their options open, um, for the D1 and D2 schools. So, um, I would say it's pretty unlikely to get much communication before that sophomore year. Junior college, I think is similar. I would not 100%, but I'm pretty sure they're pretty open on dates and when they can start recruiting and what years. But again, they're usually very late in the process because they are recruiting kids that didn't get into schools that they, 4-year schools that they wanted to go to academically, or just for whatever reason, kid gets cold feet and um, wants to stay closer to home. Those are more the junior college kids that are getting recruited, and they're just too busy. Almost all the junior college coaches, maybe even all of them, are both beach and indoor. So, um, yeah, they're double double busy. Us beach only coaches. Um, Junior year, the only real notes I have is academics. Make sure your academics are good. Like I said, in beach volleyball and volleyball in general, it's not as much of an issue, but if you need to up your academics, get on it. Get in the study halls, use those tutoring resources or whatever you got at your school. And visit schools, see if you actually like the schools. I would recommend that for, sophomores that are also getting recruited. See if you like the campus. Do you want to be at a big school? Some kids really want to go to a big school in their head, and then they get on campus and, they feel like an ant in a giant colony, and they are like, whoa, this is, not for me. And that's part of it. Um, Coaches will understand that, right? That's again, they want kids that are going to fit their culture. They want kids that want to be there. Um, I feel like I forgot about that a little bit. So I'll mention it now, and maybe again I'll repeat it at the end, emphasize it. Coaches want players to reach out. They don't want our parents. They don't want coaches. They want a player to be invested in going to that program. They understand that it might not be, their number one or their first choice. They may be reaching out to multiple schools and have different reasons for different schools. Um, but again, a coach or parent um, leading the way. And I realize that this can be difficult for younger players, shy people. I'm a shy person myself. Always working on it. Um, it's uncomfortable particularly to send emails out into the void where you're guaranteed to not get a response, right? Like I said, if you're 2026 or younger. Um, but that stands out. Being a D1 athlete also takes courage. So stepping up and writing your own emails, putting it all together yourself is definitely important. And it shows coaches that you care and you want to be there and you're committed. Um, yeah. Uh, you know, a a coach that gets a call from a director, um, or a coach, another coach, or sorry, like a youth coach. That's the words I'm looking for. Um, I'm just gonna say, okay, have them reach out. You know, we even had that recently. And then the player didn't reach out, and so you don't pursue it that much. It's not really it's not gonna be a fit if they're not into it, invested, and willing to make those steps. Seniors, there's a amateurism certification that you got to do with the NCAA. So being aware of that, Google it. Um, Update your profile if you've committed is what I have. Maybe have some backup plans if you're still not getting recruited. Um, the signing period is November to August 1st. So, um, oh man, I'm so tired. I'm blanking on what that actually means, but I that means even if you're committed, you don't actually sign anything until somewhere in that period of your senior year, somewhere between November and August 1st. Um, if you are recruited and have committed and all that stuff, the coach, I'm sure, will do a good job of staying in contact with you, but keep communicating with that coach. You know, update them. Definitely let them know if you're having any problems with admissions or anything like that, or, you know, transcripts or whatever. Um, Again, they're super busy, so they'll try to, get you connected with compliance and things like that. But obviously they want to, they're counting on someone coming to their school. So, um, you need an NCAA profile to go on official visits. So at some point, registering for an NCAA profile. You also might want an NAIA profile. Okay, here's where I have athlete-led communication. So I don't have to go all the way back into it, but coaches want to see that the athlete is truly interested and committed. Um, Again, don't want a parent or a coach reaching out particularly. It's just, yeah, it just doesn't give a good impression, a strong impression. Not sure what exactly the words I'm looking for, but and then this probably should have gone in the email section, but include assistant coaches in those emails. A lot of times those are the people that are reading the emails, right? They a lot of times do the first sort of sift through. They watch that highlight video, and then they flag something if they're interested, and that then goes to the head coach. I'm an assistant coach and then the recruiting director. Stuff goes to me first. So that's true of many, many, many programs. Um, that's mostly it. I guess I mixed my tips in a little more with the spiel. Sorry, I had this very well prepared last week. Obviously, there were some Zoom issues. Um, so I'm a little less prepared. Had a pretty busy day today as well. But hopefully that covers it. I did want to say a little bit, I've met a lot of D1 coaches, particularly over the last year now that I'm working with them, but even, in my work as a community college coach and in my work as SC Beach director and, as a coach and, just volleyball in general. I've been in beach volleyball community for a long time. And this is also what they say when I talk to them, right? Particularly in the sense that they want athletes to reach out for themselves. That's a big one. Doing research is really nice. Having those highlight videos, having information easy to find, easy to read. Um, and yeah, I mean, I have asked a lot of them. Um, also just as the SE Beach director, because I want to help athletes prepare as best as possible. So I don't want to just tell everyone or all these athletes, hey, this is what I do and what I like, you know. So do this, because I'm a D1 coach. Well, but I ask, um, the coaching community is small, right? And the other thing that can happen is, I have a friend that's an assistant coach at Hawaii and talk to the Cal coaches a lot. Sometimes there's an athlete that's sort of on the edge somewhere, and then coaches are talking or Cal has a full roster and they talk, they're just talking to another coach down south. We're talking all the time in that month of July, and they say, "Oh, I have a full roster, but and I'm looking for somebody," and they say, "Oh, well, check out so and so." So it's always good to, be in communication with coaches, have them aware of your situation. And for the most part, coaches are in it to help athletes. We're very competitive, obviously. At the D1 level, your job is on the line. You have to win. And most of the coaches I talk to, most of the coaches, definitely all the coaches I respect, um, it's very important to them to help an athlete, to develop an athlete, to do the best they can for each individual person and player. So, um, yeah, a coach doesn't really want to strengthen a rival, but at the same time, they understand that this is important for the kids and the athletes as well. Um, that's it in my notes. Like I said, I was a little more prepared last week, so maybe I had a few more things to say. Um, I'll definitely open it up to questions. If anyone has any questions, that's not on the Zoom, feel free to contact me. Um, and I'm always happy to help. I in the Bay Area up here in Northern California, we have a lot of club options. There's a lot in Southern California, um, but it's narrowed down a little bit to, the big ones. Um, and I see a lot of athletes that play for SC Beach, athletes that, choose to play for other clubs. I'm still happy to help. At the end of the day, I want to help athletes as best I can. So, if anyone has questions, if you want to um, stick it in the chat, that's great. If you feel like you need to voice it, unmute and voice is fine. If you don't want to be recorded, you can potentially I could turn off the recording. Ideally, it's okay for you to get or you're okay with being recorded, just because all this information is super clear in my head, and I have my notes and things like that. I'm sure there are lots of questions that people watching this will have that maybe you have, and questions are almost always helpful to clarify, to help people understand things better. Like I said, it makes well, maybe not perfect sense, but it makes sense to me. Um, if there's something that didn't make sense to you, please ask, and that would be great to um, share it with everyone. Okay, I'm looking at the chat. Okay, thank you for the question. I'm gonna read it out. Is it okay to have indoor and beach volleyball stuff mixed on your volleyball YouTube and Instagram? How is that viewed? Yeah, that's fine. I mean, as a beach volleyball coach, I am probably only going to watch the beach volleyball stuff. And I assume most of the indoor coaches are only going to watch the indoor stuff. I've had every once in a while, I've had some athletes reach out that only have indoor. And then I potentially send them a message and say, hey, you got to show me some beach stuff. Like, yeah, I see you hit as an outside hitter hitting the ball, and, it looks like you can pass decently. But um, the best analogy I've heard was from a fellow coach. I think she was at GCU at one point. Um, she said something along the lines of much better than me. Um, Beach volleyball and volleyball are comparable, or indoor volleyball, I should say, are comparable to diving and gymnastics, right? There are skills, flexibility, movement of your body that are very similar and useful for each other. Um, but they are done in a completely different mode, medium, whatever you want to call it. Environment, I guess, is the best word term for it. And yeah, I mean, if you really talk to particularly beach coaches, they see it almost as a completely different sport. It is, I have seen a lot of really, really high level indoor volleyball athletes come out on the beach and look like a baby deer. They cannot move, they cannot balance, they cannot stand up. They just it's just so hard. And that doesn't mean that they can't do it eventually. It's just in this day and age, with how competitive it is for scholarships and even roster spots, and how good the level of beach volleyball is at this point, um, it's hard. It's hard to be a mainly indoor player and transition to beach and get a roster spot. Um, nice. I have more questions, so I'm gonna read them in order. Invites to camps, how to tell it specific for you. Um, I feel like I saw and read something about that, but I don't remember. The what I'm remembering off the top of my head is I don't think there's a way to tell. Um, if you get an invite, you can ask essentially, you can send an email and say, hey, is this just a very general invite? Is there something in particular you think usually phrase it in like a feedback way, like, hey, you think there's something that I could really learn from this camp? Like what specifically um are you looking for? I think you got to sort of beat around the bush at it. And it's hard to know. You might know by going, right? Then that can stand out more, obviously, if a coach is talking to you a lot and stuff like that. But it's tough. And I don't, I'm not sure what the rules would be if you get a camp invite and you're, one of the younger players and, they're not allowed to email you back. I don't remember the rules for that off the top of my head, but that is a good question. If if you really want to know, you can email me and I can look into it, potentially even ask Gary, the head coach, or compliance. Is going to Club v Club events helpful or not so much? Um, I love the Club v Club events as a tournament director because I love how it um, gives that college match feel for the players, and it can be a really good experience for the players of how that really works. Um, I would say, yeah. I mean, especially the big ones, the BVCA one in early July and the USA volleyball one at the end of July. I will be well attended. The USA one at the end might be less just because it's end of July. Coaches are probably starting to get out of the SoCal area by then. But definitely the BVCA one, there will be a lot of coaches there. And again, they're going to want to see how you are as a teammate, how you are as a teammate in that club v club environment, right? Where it's not just you and your partner, right? You have to be good to you and you have to be good to your partner. But, if your match ends early, are you going over and cheering for your teammates? And are you, involved? Are you invested? Or are you just there, for yourself and to hit some balls and to try to impress a coach because you're the biggest, baddest athlete? All right. What is the critical height needed? There is none. Kristen Nuss is the best thing to happen to beach volleyball, uh, in my lifetime, as far as I'm concerned. She is 5'6". She is on the second rated team in the world. She is amazing. Obviously, that doesn't apply to everyone, that level of amazing. Uh, but I really do think it has opened player and coaches' eyes to, I think we were headed in a direction of, hey, if you're under 5'8", I'm not even giving you a look. And we were going back in the direction of, oh, that kid can, jump and hit that ball at that angle and at that pace. And so it's more, obviously, if you're on the smaller side, you got to get in the gym and work on your jump and get up and and really push yourself to hit angles that are difficult to hit. So I'm always encouraging players to hit the ball in the net. Because eventually they're going to start hitting downward at that angle that they need to hit it downward at. Um, and yeah, it's maybe 5 foot is if you really want to cut off, but I don't want to even restrict it to that, right? There's a Santa Cruz player, she's 5'1", I think, and she's going to Bakersfield, so she's playing D1, or she's gonna be on a D1 roster. How many college camps versus group college camps to go to? I'm not sure if I understand that question. Um, I don't know. I think something I read was 2 to 3 in a year would be great. I mean, the more you go to, the better in the certain sense that you get a sense of what. the college is like, what the campus is like, what the coaches are like. Um, oh, where a bunch of different colleges are there. Um, Going to a specific camp, I think, indicates a level of interest with that particular program, right? You want to specifically work with those coaches. For general exposure, the general camps are great, right? That's a way to get on a radar, or many radars. I wouldn't say there's any restriction on it. Obviously, there's some financial restrictions. It's expensive to go to the camps. It's expensive to travel, blah, 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 blah. So I would say going to, um, especially for the specific camps, schools that an athlete is genuinely interested in. Um, okay. Hopefully that answers those questions. Generally speaking, are there any types of college majors that are not compatible with being academics require too much time with being a D1 athlete? Oh, that's a good question. It's definitely not my area of expertise. So I don't know. Um, that would potentially be something that you could talk to what's the word, like a college counselor or whatever, guidance counselor about is that English? I'm losing my English, sorry. Um, in the most general sense, no, right? Just a kid can do as much as they want, and they should do as much as they want, and they should push themselves. Um, the issue is that, particularly D1 and probably even D2, it's a full-time job. It's 40 plus hours a week, for a solid chunk of the season of the year. Um, and yeah, that's something to consider. But again, that's something to consider in the general sense as well. Like, do I want my college experience to be essentially dominated by this sport? Um, because it will be. If you're D3, community college, that's when it's not. But even NAIA schools, from what I know, I've talked to some of those coaches. They want to win. We have coaches want to win. We're competitive. We're developing athletes. We want the best for them. We're gonna help as much as we can, but there's a little flexibility in players showing up a little late to practice because of classes. But that's usually only when it's like a class for them, when they're upperclassmen, when they're juniors and seniors and they need a class to graduate, blah, 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 blah. And it's at that time, and then there's some leeway. It looks like that's it for questions, unless anyone else has any questions. Um, we'll give it a moment, but it seems unlikely. And what I'll do is I will turn off the recording. And if anyone was shy and wants to ask a question for a couple minutes, I'll open it up. And then I'll end the Zoom. For anyone watching recorded, thank you very much for watching. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for the questions. I'm sure if you have more questions, they'll be useful. Again, if anyone has any questions that they think of later, I think of that all the time. My brain starts working and I think of questions. Um, Feel free to contact me. All my information is on the SC Beach website, scbeachvb.com. The best and easiest way is contact at scbeachvolleyball.com. That will guarantee you a response within about 2 days. I'm pretty good. Calls and texts. Usually I'll read the text or hear the voicemail. And then if I don't have something marked, I might forget about it and I'll respond eventually, but it's a little less reliable, and I apologize for that. But yes, email is great. If you want to schedule a call, that kind of thing is fine. Um, I just voicemails don't always, I'm a very busy person. Um, so yeah, thank you everyone. Like I said, I'm gonna closing this chat. I'm gonna stop recording for and stay for a few moments if anyone has anything they want to talk to me about or something like that. Thank you. Go SC Beach.